Yeah, so the goal of this presentation, Laravel has a lot of features, and one of the most valuable ones for everyday development, in my opinion, is Laravel Artisan. And I've been kind of surprised meeting other Laravel developers, done some interviews, as I see people give talks, whatever, is just how little Laravel Artisan I see people use compared to how heavily I use it personally and how heavily we use it. It's just such a great tool to save yourself time and improve your workflow, and really do a lot of things you could do manually on your own. Instead, just have Laravel Artisan do them for you super quick and get some stuff done and move on to the interesting about your application. So our goals for the presentation are to extend Laravel Artisan. We're going to create some MVC CRUD files really quickly. We want to be able to seed some fake data whenever we want into our local database for development purposes. And we want to use Artisan to test our changes rather than testing them in the browser. So let's go ahead and check out Laravel Artisan for those who aren't familiar with it. From the command line of your project, your Laravel project.
Can everyone see that okay?
Mm-hmm. Just type in Laravel Artisan, and it will spit all this super helpful and verbose information. So you'll notice I type PHP first before I type Artisan. Laravel is just a PHP, or Artisan is just a PHP script at the end of the day. And it is running your entire Laravel framework. And the general usage is PHP Artisan, whatever command you want to run, followed by the options in Artisan. It's got some general stuff that sort of you might find in any full-fledged command line interface, like help and version, verbose. Then it's going to list out all the available commands that it knows about and tell you a little bit something about them. So these are a whole bunch of commands for working with your application. For example, taking your Laravel application down for maintenance. Type in PHP Artisan down. And it'll display a helpful error message to the user that says, hey, we're not working right now. Come back later. And then you can type Laravel up when you're finished doing whatever it is you do. For a lot of Laravel developers, we work in zero downtime deployment environments, so users get changed without any maintenance periods or downtime. So not something you have to do very often, but when you do need to take your application down, it is really nice you can do it that quickly. Artisan works with your cache. It works with config files, runs all your database seeders. All of these are making files inside of your application that just sort of work out of the box for you. It deals with your database migrations to refresh them, run them, reset them, roll them back. Works with your queues, routes, all kinds of stuff. So you don't need to know about all this stuff. The stuff that you need to know is kind of going to be provided for you in documentation. As you go along, don't worry too much about the details. The point is just that there's a lot of stuff here with this. And each one of these, if I run like art, fire on screen, art, migrate, it's going to spit out some helpful information, give you what the options are, and kind of give you time.
Is the Artisan commands, are they only used from like a command window, command line?
Yes. Now, some IDEs have that included. I know PHP Storm has like a command line at the bottom of your screen and stuff that you can run. But yeah, it's just commands. Yeah, okay, so you'll see me type this a lot in here, art. And it's just a local alias I have for the PHP Artisan command. You can Google how to do that. I'm just so in the habit of typing it, I will say art. Type art, I mean PHP Artisan. Same thing. Cool. So, yeah, so let's talk about, obviously it has all the stuff out of the box that's included when you just install a base Laravel application. But one of the biggest things that we do around here, or that I do personally, is to extend, So we extend the functionality of Laravel Artisan to do things that are specific to our application. So I've spit out that same thing we saw before with all the available commands, and I've just filtered it down to the lines that include the word cats. And these are the commands that I have created locally for the application that I'm actually running. So this is all based on code that I've written. And we're going to get into what that looks like and what it does in the course of this. The point, again, is just that what you get out of the box is not all you can do with ours. Anything you want. And specifically, what these particular commands do is to reset all my database migrations and seed a bunch of development. So if I just run art cats fresh, I've instructed it to ask me if I want to reset my databases and seed some data. So type yes, and it's going to spit all this stuff out on the page. So the first thing it says is get your databases combined. It's going to drop all of my MySQL tables. Then it's going to run all of my database migration files that I have in my project. And as these are all doubled up, you can see that it's creating a breeds table, a toys table, a cats table, a breed toy table. Then it's going to seed some cat breeds into the local database. And then it's going to tell me about each one that's created. So I just picked some cat names off, or cat breeds off of Wikipedia or wherever I got them, and told it to put each one of these into the database as its own row. And then I've got some cat toys, laser pointers, string, fuzzy ball, etc. Again, it's just entering them into the local database. Then it's associating some favorite toys with each of these breeds. So Persian, randomly, they're going to have a favorite toy of feather and crinkle ball. Dog, mouse toy, an actual mouse. And then I've told it to create 6 random cats with some sort of randomized data in the database. So now that I've run all of this, I can spin up my application, and it's going to have a whole bunch of random cats with their attributes right out of the box for testing. I just talked about what our final destination here. This is a CRUD resource. So anybody not familiar with the term CRUD, the acronym CRUD, with MVC CRUD files? Yes? No? Everybody's good? Okay, cool. Yeah. So the 4 basic things we want to be able to do is obviously list all the cats that we have. I want to be able to add a cat. I want to be able to put in an age, select a breed. I've got some JPEG files out here with cat pics, and then enter a bio, create them. I want to be able to see them in my list. I want to be able to edit their details. So if we say this cat is actually Fred, he's actually 3 years old, he is an Abyssinian, and his bio is bio. Able to hit save. Have that all updated here. Fred stuff. And then I want to be able to delete, of course, those cats from the list, and we delete Fred. So that's where we're going to get to. I'm going to switch branches back to my master branch. And I'm going to run cats fresh again to reset all my databases. All right, and now we're going to look at what we've got here locally. All right, so the first thing that I don't have now that I've deleted all my stuff from my other branch is I don't have any cats. I have breeds, I have toys, and I have a relationship between breeds and toys. But I don't actually have a model file for cats. I don't have anything for the database for cats. And I don't have any controller files around cats. So if I use our list, yeah, it says, hey, the cat controller doesn't exist. That file isn't here. And if I try to ls app grep cat, sorry, PHP, there's nothing there. Okay, so those files are now gone from my local ones. So I've got my breeds, I've got my toys, but I need something for cats. I need to tie it all together into a list of cats. Now, if you were creating a model file in Laravel, you could say, okay, I want a new file in my text editor, say PHP. I'm going to set a namespace, app, and then I'm going to say class cat. That extends model. Yeah, cool. Oh, now I need to go find like model and figure out how to extend that. I've got to drag it into my use statements, and I don't really know where that file lives. It has like a path here where it needs to like find the model file. Okay, and then if you've seen a Laravel migration file, there's like a whole bunch of stuff that you got to get right out of the box. If you type something, if you make the file wrong, Laravel's going to abort because it's not what it is. So there's all this sort of complexity around creating these files, and you need to do this a lot if you're working on an application with, say, 20 different models and all the relationships and all the database migration. That's a lot of manual entry, and that's a lot of opportunity. We don't have to do any of that. We can just tell Artisan to do it for us. So I'm going to say art. I'm going to tell it to make a model file. I'm going to use the R flag to say, also give me a resource controller file with that. And I'm going to use the M flag to say, you know what, also give me a database migration. I'm going to call the whole thing cat. Artisan is going to helpfully create 3 files for me. It's going to create a model file. It's going to create a migration file with an appropriate name. And then it's going to create a resource controller. So let's go ahead and take a look at those and see what we get. So app cat is a file that Artisan just created for me. As you can see, my namespace is already there. I already have the eloquent model in my use statements. Cat extends model. And hopefully it says // which in the Laravel world, as you're learning Laravel and you see // somewhere, Taylor's way of saying, put your stuff here. This is where your stuff goes. This is how you customize what I've given you out of the box. Cool, so let's look at our cat controller. Awesome, look at all this code that I have that Artisan just gave me out of the box. Because I said it's a resource controller, it gave me all of the normal RESTful verb methods that your controller needs in order to do what it needs to do. So I've already got my use statements here. I've got helpful doc blocks. All of this stuff is already done. My method signatures are already here. Now, I've got this particular file already done in my other branch, so I'm going to just check it out. Save myself the time of doing here. The controllers. Just to save the time of going through these methods. But I think you can tell just at a glance that I didn't have to add that much code to what was already here. I just had to stub in sort of the normal stuff for these methods in order to get this all to work. But I didn't have to monkey around with any of this stuff. I didn't touch that at all when I wrote this code. I just wrote what was inside the method itself. For example, for an update, really standard thing on a simple model is whatever your object is, update it with request all and return or redirect to the index page. That's a super common thing for you to do. You can just write those couple of lines and move on with your life rather than monkeying around with the whole class itself. All right, so now let's look at our database migration. And this is what I was talking about. Oops, sorry, wrong one. That's table. So as you can see, there's a lot of code that you got to get right out of the box before you even start working on a database migration file. There's these use statements up here. You got to extend migration. This has to match what your class or what your file name is, and it has to match it in a way that Laravel is expecting in order for this to work. There's an up and a down method. There's this schema, create, cats, function, blueprint, table thing. And look, it's even given me, helpfully, table increments ID, which is saying, giving a MySQL auto-incrementing ID column. And then it's saying table timestamps, which will automatically give you carbon date enabled, created at, and updated at columns in your database, right out of the box. That's pretty nifty. So all I've got to do is put whatever my specific columns are right here in the middle, and it'll work. And then I've also got a down method down here for the way that Laravel runs migrations to say, when I say roll back, this is the function it's going to do. All that's already done for me. So I can just write my own code that's specific to my application and not worry about the sort of boilerplate stuff that you have to do every single time. Cool, so our controller is done. I am going to go through writing a model and writing a migration. So where I always like to start when I have a new model is with the fillable array. And I feel like that's always a really good place to start because you're basically saying, these are all the attributes of this model that I'm allowing you to fill into the database. And those are usually all the attributes that your database is going to have. So I know that cats need a name. I know that I'm going to have an age for them. They're going to need somewhere to store that JPEG image file. They're going to have a bio. And then I want to know what breed every cat is. And so in the database, I need to know a breed ID. Cool. So we'll add a doc block onto that real quick. Say the fillable attributes. That is an array. And then I also know, again, we're talking about that relationship to breed. I know that I'm going to need a function called breed, and it's going to return this belongs to breed. I have a shortcut to add that to my use statements up at the top. That's going to be a class. We put a doc block on that. Cats have breed. And fill this in real quick. Again, this is a function of my text editor that I can say belong to, hit Control-Shift-Enter, and it'll fill in the full path to that file for me. Okay, so our cat model is done. Now I'm just going to take this fillable contents and move over to my migration file. Do some formatting.
Your fillable had too many L's in it.
Maybe I kept you around for a reason, Jordan. And I'm going to again use a Sublime Text feature of multi-edit here to just stub these all in real quick. Cool. Then I'll go through each one and set what I want. So table string is fine for the name. Age, though, I want to make sure that the database enforces that that's an integer. String is fine for the image. Bio is a string, but the string column is not wide enough for like a full paragraph of gobbledygook text, so we'll make that the text type. Breed ID is going to be an integer. Because it's an ID column on another database, we're going to make it unsigned. And one thing I'm concerned with here is that some other developer tries to put like random integers into that column for breed ID. I want to make sure that it's something that actually exists in the breeds column. And the migration file here is going to quickly allow me to put a foreign key constraint on this column. So I'm going to say table foreign breed ID references the ID column on breeds table. And now MySQL will bark if anybody tries to, if there's like 1 through 7 are my breeds and somebody puts in 999, MySQL will bomb out and say, hey, you can't do that. Cool. So again, let's make sure that this works by using Artisan. So art migrate. Awesome. So now my cats table is created in my local MySQL instance. I know that works. Cool. Another thing that I've got here is a cat factory. And factories are a way to define how the factory seeder can put some random data together and either just create it locally in memory or put it into your database. So I've told it about my cat class. I've given it a faker, an instance of faker generator, which is a really cool public library that gives you fake data. For the name field, I said faker, just give me a random name. For the age field, I feel like cats are usually between 1 and 16 years old, so give me that random number. For the bio, faker, just give me some paragraph of like lorem ipsum text. For the image file, again, those are kind of specifically names. I have 6 of them, so cat plus random number 1 through 6, .jpeg. And then for the breed ID, I've said, hey, give me all the breeds, pick a random one, and give me that ID. Cool. So that's my factory. All right, so let me make sure I'm kind of going through and creating an artisan command with an artisan command. Actually, I'm not going to do that, sorry. That was a different version. All right, so let's figure out how to create this command. So again, art cats fresh, yes. So we've got our breeds, we've got our toys, and we've got our toys that are associated with breeds, but there's nothing here for cats. There's a couple of different ways to actually create artisan commands, and the documentation for Laravel can tell you about those. But I went ahead and used the route of putting them in the routes console file. The Inspire one is the one that you get out of the box. And this will sort of show us the blueprint for how to do these. So artisan command inspires the command signature. It's using an anonymous function closer to say this comment calls the inspiring object, gives a quote, and then it puts a description on it that says display an inspiring quote. So if we look at art inspire, we'll see that that's the signature that it has right here. And the description is display an inspiring quote. And if we run it, art inspire, we get an inspiring quote from Leonardo da Vinci. Awesome. So that's the kind of blueprint we're using for these. So here I have my cat seed breeds, which takes, again, this specific list. It spits out some helpful info, and then it says for each of those breeds, create it in the database, and then say which one you create. For the cat seed toys, same exact thing. Bunch of cat toys, spit out some info, go through each toy, create it in the database, say which one you created. Awesome. For the Toys Association, it's a little more complicated, but basically it's saying for all the breeds, go through each of them, get a random 2 to 4 toys right here, and then sync them up with the breed, and then tell me what you did. And then Cats Fresh is what ties them all together. So here's the confirm right here that says, would you like to reset your database and see some data? And if I say yes, then it says kiss your database goodbye. It kills the database and reruns all my migrations, calling the migrate fresh art command. And then it calls the other 3 commands that I have defined here. Cool, so I feel like it's a pretty easy call that the thing that we're going to add to this is going to be called cats seed cats. So let's go ahead and define that right here. First of all, let's just see what happens if we just run that. Art cats fresh. Yes. Oh, it worked out. Command cat see cats is not defined. Did you mean one of these? No, I did not. So let's write it up real quick. So artisan command. The signature is going to be exactly what I said. Cats seed cats. Cool. I need an anonymous method right here. And my formatting is all screwed up. And then I need to describe it. Set up some cats in the database. And let's just do that real quick. This info cats cat whatever. Yes. Cool. So right here at the bottom, you can see it ran. It said cat, and then walked away. All right. So I'm going to take some of this boilerplate stuff that I've got here. The only thing that you could not get is this console line method, which I have defined as a local helper. Again, you can see the Laravel docs for how to do that. And it just gives me that sort of consistent dashes thing right there. Let's change this info line to say setting up some random cats in the database. Cool. I'm going to do this a little bit differently because we've got that factory. So I'm going to use the factory helper. I'm going to use the cat file at the top of my file here. Lost my place on the page. Cool. Cat class. And let's do 15 cats. Create all of those in the database. And for each one, let's say this info created cat. Cool. All right, so let's try it one more time, and hopefully we get some cats. Awesome. So there's all of our cats. They've all got random names. They've all got random data. One last thing we can do, I wrote that relationship in my model for breeds. We can use Laravel Tinker instead of like, how do you usually test stuff? You make a web page and then you spit some data into it, and you usually have to var dump something and exit, and like there's all this stuff you have to do, right? You don't have to do any of that to test your application code that you can do it all very quickly in the command line without creating a single web page. And again, in Laravel, you got to create a route for that. You got to have a controller method probably. There's all kinds of stuff you got to do. So let's just use Art Tinker instead. Art Tinker is what is called a re-ETL, and I can't remember right now what that stands for, but it's written in Python, written by Justin Heilemann, and it is just like Artisan is a PHP script that runs your entire Laravel application, Art Tinker is a command line interface that runs your whole Laravel application. So this has booted up all of my application code. So anything that I could do in a PHP file within my application, I can do here. So let's say for app cat breed, let's take all of them and just spit out a random one. Spit out another random one and give me a name. For all the breeds, why don't we pluck the name off of those? Sweet. So now I can see that all of this stuff that I get with my model, all this code that Laravel gives me, works. And if there was any errors in any of this for what I have written, it would work out here, give me a big red box, and I could start trying to figure out what happened. So let's just force an error, and we'll say name Bob. I don't know what that error is. Luckily, Artisan has a really helpful thing called WTF, which is exactly what I say every time I see one of these errors. And that'll tell you the last exception that was given out, and the WTF minus A will show you more details and the full command stack. Cool. So just a helpful feature. There are some really cool built-in sort of features within Tinker. If you've never looked at the documentation to see all of them, there's some cool stuff that you get out of the box. WTF, though, being my favorite one. Okay, so app, cat, all, random. Cool. Okay, so we can see that the breed ID here is 1, which I think is Persian, if I remember correctly. So let's say more specifically where breed ID 1 get. Cool, so there's a bunch of those. Let me, oops, do that, fine, where breed ID 1 get. Let's just pull the first one off the list, and I want to see a breed. Oh, sorry. Oh, cool. So I actually did this wrong, and it's giving me the error message. So let's look at my app file. Oh, yeah. I didn't return this, so I actually screwed up live. Awesome. So there you go. That's how you troubleshoot your code in Tinker. When you do a eloquent relationship method, you need to have a return at the beginning of it. My first day. Cool. All right, so there you go. That's exactly what you would do to say, hey, my code is wrong. Let me go and fix it and just rerun it in Tinker. You did notice that I quit out of Tinker, and then I went back into it so that it reloads all my application code. There's some tricks around that, and I'm still looking for that to be like a normal feature, that it just sort of refreshes all your application code as a watcher. But today, that's what you got to do. So there you go. So yeah, we've got cats. All my code works, and I think compared to like a really manual way of doing all this stuff, I'm hoping it's really obvious how much time I save by doing all this. Additionally, with the database seeding, like as you go through development iterations, you're changing databases, and you're needing to set up that development data over and over again. It saves a lot of time. And as your application grows, you can grow those console commands with it, and it'll just sort of keep pace. And then any developer on your application who clones it fresh will just be able to get all this stuff out of the box. So anyway, hope that was helpful.